Yeah. It's fine. Now I want to sit on my wife. Share. Can you see? This is the thing because I don't have the phone. Brothers, you are live now. Was it not working?
الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Our brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and Jazakallah khair for coming today, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our attendance today and our good deeds, especially if it is cold, is a cold hall, especially for the brothers. And I pray and hope to Allah that adds to our good deeds, inshallah. We are well aware, and I'm sure you are all well aware, we intend to have these talks on a point of relevance on a monthly basis, usually the third Sunday of the month. Our next talk will be on Sunday the 17th of February, inshallah. If you want to be kept informed of these monthly talks and events, please leave your details with Sheikh Ismail or myself, or you need to keep an eye on the notice boards. There is a registration form on the side, so if you can put your names and details, inshallah we'll keep you informed. So brothers and sisters, why this event and why are we holding these talks? There is no doubt a huge amount of pressure from society to reform, to accept a new way of thinking for us. We should be in a position to be able to discuss our beliefs with anyone, including non-Muslims. So it is with this aim in mind that we're holding these talks, to make us and our children confident in our deen. We must be able to deal with any issue that is thrown at us. And we know, wherever you look now, that there are lots of issues that are thrown at us, lots of issues that are spoken about that we are expected to reform to. And it is with that aim in mind that we hold these talks, to build a confident community, inshallah. We're going to start, inshallah, with a short Quran recitation of Surah Araf by Brother Shafi, and then I'll read the translation, and then we'll start, inshallah.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ثم بعثنا من بعدهم موسى بآياتنا إلى فرعون وملئه فظلموا بها فانظر كيف كان عاقبة المفسدين. وقال موسى يا فرعون إني رسول من رب العالمين حقيق على ألا أقول على الله إلا الحق قد جئتكم ببينة من ربكم فأرسل معي بني إسرائيل. قال إن كنت جئت بآية فأت بها إن كنت من الصادقين. فألقى عصاه فإذا هي ثعبان مبين ونزع يده فإذا هي بيضاء للناظرين. قال الملأ من قوم فرعون إن هذا لساحر عليم يريد أن يخرجكم من أرضكم فماذا تأمرون قالوا أرجه وأخاه وأرسل في المدائن حاشرين يأتوك بكل ساحر عليم وجاء السحرة فرعون قالوا إن لنا لأجرا إن كنا نحن الغالبين قال نعم وإنكم لمن المقربين قالوا يا موسى إما أن تلقي وإما أن نكون نحن الملقين قال ألقوا فلما ألقوا سحروا أعين الناس واسترهبوهم وجاءوا بسحر عظيم وأوحينا إلى موسى أن ألق عصاك فإذا هي تلقف ما يأفكون فوقع الحق وبطل ما كانوا يعملون فغلبوا هنالك وانقلبوا صاغرين وألقي السحرة ساجدين قالوا آمنا برب العالمين رب موسى وهارون قال فرعون آمنتم به قبل أن آذن لكم إن هذا لمكر مكرتموه في المدينة لتخرجوا منها أهلها فسوف تعلمون لأقطعن أيديكم وأرجلكم من خلاف ثم لأصلبنكم أجمعين قالوا إنا إلى ربنا منقلبون وما تنقم منا إلا أن آمنا بآيات ربنا لما جاءتنا ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وتوفنا مسلمين صدق الله العظيم.
Then we sent after them Musa with our signs to Pharaoh and his chiefs, but they rejected them. Now see how was the end of the mischief makers. Musa said, O Pharaoh, I am a messenger from the Lord of the worlds, with a mandate to speak of Allah, nothing but the truth. I come to you with a clear proof from your Lord, so send forth with me the children of Israel. Pharaoh said, if you come with a sign, then produce it, if you speak the truth. Then he flung down his staff, and it was a serpent manifest. And he drew forth his hand from his robes, and behold, it was white to the beholders. Said the chiefs of Pharaoh's people, surely this is a cunning sorcerer, who will expel you from your land, so what do you advise? Others said, put him and his brother off a while, and send summoners to the cities, to bring you every skilled magician. And the magicians came to Pharaoh, saying, surely there will be a reward for us if we are the victors. He said, yes indeed, and you shall be of those near to me. They said, O Musa, will you throw first, or shall we be the ones to cast? He said, "Throw." And when they threw, they cast a spell over the people's eyes and terrified them and produced a mighty spell. And when we revealed to Musa, "Cast your staff," and behold, it swallowed up their fabrication. So was the truth established, and that which they did was proved false. Thus were they defeated there and brought low, and the wizards fell down prostrate, crying, "We believe in the Lord of the worlds, the Lord of Musa and Harun." Pharaoh said, "You believe in him before I gave you leave? Surely this is a plot that you have hatched in the city, that you should expel its people from it. Now will you know. Surely I will cut off your hands and feet upon alternate sides. I shall then crucify you, everyone." They said, "Surely to our Lord would we be returning. You wreak vengeance on us only because we have believed in the signs of our Lord when they came to us. Our Lord, pour out upon us patience and make us die as those who have surrendered to you." Sadaqallahu al-Azim. Brothers and sisters, the brother who's giving a talk, Brother ZACKARIYA, is a well-known brother in the Muslim community, in Nottingham especially. He has been a dawah carrier and a regular speaker for a while, so I'm not going to spend more time. Just ask Brother ZACKARIYA to start his talk, inshallah. Just so you know, I do intend to finish by 8:15 the talk, and then we'll have about 15 minutes worth of Q&A as well, if you have any questions to ask, inshallah.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. قال الله تعالى في القرآن الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: قال موسى لقومه استعينوا بالله واصبروا إن الأرض لله يورثها من يشاء من عباده والعاقبة للمتقين. صدق الله العظيم. Firstly, I would like to begin with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.
May the peace and the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be on all of us, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward all of you guys with goodness for coming here, even though it's really, really cold. So, jazakumullahu khair. Can everybody hear me, by the way? Yeah, the mic. Okay. The brothers informed me that in previous months and previous sessions, you've covered the lessons from the lives of the Prophets ﷺ. And who better to take lessons from than the noble messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala referred to them as their best examples to follow. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said this about Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Where in Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. That indeed in the messenger of Allah you have a good example to follow. And similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said this about Ibrahim. He said, قَدْ كَانَتْ لَكُمْ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ فِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ. That indeed in Ibrahim you also have a good example. So the Quran, we see it covers the stories from history. It covers the stories of prophets. And a lot of the Quran is dedicated to that. So you have to ask yourself why. Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spend so much time telling you about history? Telling you about the prophets alayhimu salam? And the reason is very simple, and we're all aware of the reason. It's so we can apply it today. It's a practical example for us today. So we can take lessons from it today. And if you was to take their stories, their examples, their struggles, and it was simply just a story. That's all you took it as. Or you took it as like a fairy tale. Because sometimes you listen to these stories and you think, whoa, even Hollywood can't make a better story than this. Some of the things are amazing. And unfortunately for some people it's become fairy tales. And for some people it's just a bedtime story. Like I've got a son, he's 5 years old. I might tell him the story of Musa alayhi salam. But is it just a bedtime story? Or is it Or is it just a bedtime story that I tell him that has no reference or relevance to him? Or is it something that I read and increase my knowledge and make myself appear knowledgeable, but there's nothing practical that comes about at the end of it? So is this causing a lot of trouble?
Both we need.
Let me see if I can hold it. It helps.
If you hold, more problem.
Yeah. Is that okay? Sorry about that, guys. So, if we take all of these things that I've mentioned, and it's simply a story, a fairy tale, a bedtime story, and you took nothing from it, then you've lost the fruit of it. Because the whole point of the story was that you take a lesson and that you apply it today. So today, inshallah, what I aim to do is discuss the story of a noble prophet, the Prophet Musa alayhi salam, who is of the 5 greatest prophets, the Ulil Azmi min al-Rusul. And inshallah, I'll discuss a couple of examples from his life and that we can take some lessons from. And you've got to remember, Musa alayhi salam, does anybody know how many times has Musa alayhi salam's name been mentioned in the Quran? In any authors? 3. 20, okay.
Yeah, I'll go for 20.
Higher or lower?
I think higher.
Higher, okay. How much higher?
Is it about 30 something?
30, okay. I know one of these youngsters here is going to show up and outshine that. Any suggestions?
24?
24. Okay.
34.
34, okay. We're getting closer, by the way, yeah? The answer is more than 100. Can you imagine? And in contrast, the name of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, how many times is it mentioned? 4. 4. So that gives you an idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your creator, the most important person in your life, is telling you about somebody and he's mentioning his name over 100 times in the Quran. Why? Because he wants you to pay attention. Because he wants you to listen. He wants you to take something from it. So don't come across the story of Musa and think, oh, okay, I can switch on. You need to listen. Now, also another reason why it's important to take the stories of the prophets from before is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that we may fall into the same traps as those before us, because the last Muslim nation before the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was Bani Israel. They were the last Muslim nation. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in a hadith, لا تتبعن سنن من كان قبلكم شبرا شبرا وذراعا بذراع حتى لو دخلوا جحر ضب تبعتموه. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, you will follow the ways of those before you, span by span, inch by inch, so much so that even you will enter the hole of a lizard. You will follow them in what they did. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is warning us that, look, you may make the same mistakes that they made. So learn from that. Yeah, don't do them. So inshallah, Musa alayhi salam's story, as you guys know, or will know, is very long. So I'm going to cover just a couple of examples to link to the point that I will be making today. And there's one theme that's in Musa alayhi salam's story that shines through. And that theme is this idea of courage. The story of Musa alayhi salam, the point of courage shines through. And that is relevant today. Why? Because being Muslim in 2019 is not easy, is it? In the climate that we're in, with the problems that we face, being a Muslim isn't easy, it's tough. And I don't need to say that to you because everyone here can feel that. They can feel the pressure, they can feel the climate. And even our youngsters who have been born in this century, they've experienced and they've heard, oh, Iraq, Afghanistan, invasion. They've heard thousands and thousands of Muslims being displaced and killed. Then now we're starting to hear China. The Muslims in China, really? I didn't know there were Muslims in China. And they're being oppressed. Muslims in Burma being oppressed. Like, really? These are the challenges that we face. We face a real physical challenge, but we also face an intellectual challenge, a challenge with our ideas, a challenge with our practices, a challenge of being Muslim. If you come closer to Europe, you know, niqab, hijab, you know, your sisters, your mothers, they wear hijab, they wear niqab. Some countries ban these things. They actually ban. You come closer to the UK, all the time, Islam is on the media, it's on the news. They're talking about this, even halal meat. Our halal meat isn't safe. They talk about halal, you Muslims, you slaughter halal meat in a bad way. All the time. Then you have parents who, they understand the issue with prevent, where their child might go to school, he might say something, maybe he said something innocent, but they misconstrue it. And then there's an investigation. Sometimes parents, they fear, oh, what should I teach my child? Should I say this, or maybe I shouldn't tell them this? Because there's a real worry, what will they do to my children? With our youth that go to school, you know, sometimes the practices of a Muslim seem odd, they seem strange. What, really, you pray? Oh, you can't go next to women? Is that true? Oh, you can't smoke weed? Oh, really? You can't do these things. So you're seen as strange, you're seen as weird. And because of all of these things, Muslims have a very difficult time. We see physical attacks, we see intellectual attacks. It's hard simply being a Muslim. So therefore it takes courage to be a Muslim in today's time. And not only that, it takes courage to be a Muslim who carries the obligations of Islam. And that's even a bigger challenge. So because of this, I want to discuss the issue of courage, and I want to talk about how courage can be built so that we have a community, we have individuals who are characterized with this. Because if we didn't have courage, what would be the problem? If we didn't have courage, then we would be a people who are scared to speak. We would be a people who are not ready to defend when Islam is being attacked. We would be a people who would be shy with our practices. We would be a people who have our head down and we're inward looking. We would never look out. So if we didn't have courage and we didn't have confidence and we didn't have bravery, we wouldn't be like this. So other people would talk about Islam, but we would not talk about it. Other people would malign Islam and we would never defend it. And slowly, Islam would fall away from us. We would lose it. So this is why it's important that we have courage and we are characterized with courage. Now, generally speaking, courage is something that we all admire. So if we define them as courageous, it's something that we want to be like, right? And no one here wants to be described as the coward. No one here wants to be described as the one that was scared or the one that backed down. And in school, we had this a lot. You know, if there was a fight, you would never back down, would you? Because you don't want to be seen as the coward. Yeah? You want to be seen as the one, yeah, I can take him on, I can take him on. That's how we feel growing up. And a lot of the time, we associate courage with what? With someone who's physically strong. So if we saw a big guy with muscles, we think, oh, yeah, he's courageous. Or if you saw a guy that was good at fighting, we think, do you know what? He's courageous. Or maybe we saw a person, sometimes you always get that person who doesn't seem to care. He just says whatever he wants, does whatever he wants, and he doesn't care about the consequences. And you think, whoa, he's got guts. And we associate courage with these things. But it's important to understand that courage is not limited to a particular size. It's not limited to a gender. It's not limited to a race. It's not limited to a specific people. The brother here can be as much courageous or as courageous as the brother over here. Because courage is built upon what's up here, the ideas that you carry. That's what makes someone courageous, or that's what can make someone a coward. And we need to understand what is courage and how we can build it. So for now, the simplest way of looking at courage is doing the right thing. And I will explain this a bit more. Think about that. Courage is doing what is necessary and what is required. Doing the right thing. But what does that actually mean? I will go into inshallah. If you look at today's society and we ask, how is courage built in this society? And what I would say is, courage in this society is often built in a very superficial way. It's very surface level. I would say it's fake. I would say it's fake. Often it's fake. Why do I say that? Because sometimes you see a guy who's acting courageous, he's standing up for something, but it's only because his pride was affected. Someone challenged his pride. Someone said something to him that he didn't like, and therefore he rose up. It had nothing to do with anything else. It was only his pride. Sometimes people act courageous because they're defending something. Maybe they're defending their family. Maybe they're defending their nation. Maybe they're defending their ethnicity. Maybe they're defending their school. So therefore you act brave. But then in another situation, someone else is in trouble, then that's not my problem. Because it was based on what? Something to do with yourself. Sometimes it's based on a self-benefit. There's something on offer. Yeah? I give this brother £5 million. Go and fight Khabib. Go and fight the world heavyweight champion of the world. £5 million. Oh, maybe I'll do it. I take the money away. No, forget that. Do you see? Because there was something involved. There was a self-benefit. When you take that benefit away, the courage is gone. Yeah? So my point is that if courage is built on these very fake, superficial things, then what happens? is you may be courageous in one instance, but you won't be courageous in another instance. So your mother is under attack, well, I'll defend her. Your neighbor is under attack, it's not really any of my business, is it? Do you see? Our courage needs to be comprehensive and it needs to be built on the correct basis. If you come to Islam, how does Islam build courage? And we see this in the story of Musa alayhi salam later on. First and foremost, courage in Islam is primarily linked to Iman. So when you believe in Allah, you believe in the Creator, what do you think? You think this is the person who created you and everything that exists. He is your protector. He is your Mawla. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, إِنَّ رَبَّكُمُ الَّذِي خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Indeed, your Lord is Allah, who created the heavens and the earth. لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Belongs to Him all that is in the heavens and the earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the master. He is the one that created every single one of us. The moment you believe that, you're going back to Him, your mindset changes. Because why would you be scared of anything else other than the one who created you? That mentality, that mindset is the basis of courage. This Iman makes you dynamic. It makes you explosive. But I mean, metaphorically explosive, not literally, yeah? It makes you a strong person. So in Islam, the first and foremost point is that Iman is what builds, is what develops courage. Secondly, other than Iman, in Islam, we have the ideas of Islam. Those ideas combined is what adds layers. It's like Iman is the bones, the ideas of Islam are the muscles. They're the shield. This is what you use to protect yourself. Yeah. This is, for any of you Dragon Ball Z fans, this is the levels of Super Saiyan. Yeah. You go up levels. He's smiling because he knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. These are the levels that you go up. Yeah? So, for example, as a Muslim, we believe in what? We believe in that your lifespan is fixed. There's a certain time that you will die. Yeah? That rizq is in Allah's hands. That you can't control things. Because what makes you not courageous? What's the opposite of courage? It's being cowardly. And what makes somebody a coward? Is when he is fearful. And what things do you fear? You fear looking like a fool. You fear, what if someone can harm you? You fear death. For the parents here, you fear losing money. And because you fear losing money, you take a step back. Let me give you an example what I mean. Imagine you start a job. We just had Christmas for the older lot here. There may be a Christmas party at work. You get invited. Should you go? You might think, oh, well, I should go, because if I don't go, then I can't mix in with the senior managers. Prayer. Should I ask my manager, should I pray? Should I not pray? Do you see? But you're worried about losing your income. You're worried, what if I can't get that promotion? So therefore, what does He do? It makes you fearful, so you take a step back. And this is the problem. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has answers for all of these things. He has given you a way to understand all of these issues. For those of you who worry about death, who worry about harm, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, everyone has an appointed time. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلِكُلِّ أُمَّةٍ أَجَلٌ فَإِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهُمْ لَا يَسْتَأْخِرُونَ سَاءَةً وَلَا يَسْتَقْدِمُونَ. Every ummah has an appointed time. You ain't going to bring it forward, you're not going to take it back. Your time is your time. So why should I be fearful about speaking? Because He is not securing my life. Allah is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala similarly about rizq. He mentioned, إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الرَّزَّاقُ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that provides your sustenance. So I'm not worried about my employer. I'm not worried about how I speak about Islam. Because Allah is the one that guaranteed my rizq. Do you see? Can you see how this adds layers now? I believe in Allah. On top of that, I believe that Allah has appointed the time. I believe my rizq comes from Him. I believe He is sustaining me and protecting me. Why should I fear anybody? Why should I fear speaking the truth? For you youngsters, when you go outside, when you go into school, why should you fear anything? Why should you fear being a Muslim? You shouldn't. Fear Allah. And ultimately, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says those things, isn't it? Allah says that, look, who makes you fear? It's shaitan who makes you fear. إِنَّمَا ذَلِكُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ يُخَوِّفُ أَوْلِيَاءَهُ فَلَا تَخَافُوهُمْ وَخَافُونِ إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. That it is shaitan that makes you fear Rather, don't fear him, fear Allah. This is what makes a Muslim courageous. This is what strengthens a Muslim. He has Iman, and the ideas of Islam make him strong. The third and final point in terms of building courage is courage is built based on the Sharia rules. What do I mean by this? Is courage in and of itself isn't praiseworthy. What I mean is, let me give you guys an example. If I was to say to you, a person stood up to somebody else, you would all describe that as courage, right? Someone standing up for something. What if I said, a person, one of these youngsters here, stood up to their dad. The dad said, it's Friday, let's go to Al-Bayan, there's a talk on Musa alayhi salam. And then one of the youngsters goes, no. And he stands up to his dad and refuses. Is that courage? That's disobedience. We'll be lucky if he doesn't get a backhand, isn't it? So courage is not praiseworthy in and of itself, but courage is praiseworthy when it comes along with the Sharia rules. And this is one of the differences in this society and Islam. In this society, courage is defined as what you like, defending what's good for you, doing what's right for you. But in Islam, courage is doing what Allah has commanded. That is the real courage. So if your father, he says to you, come, and he's enjoining you to good, then the thing that you need to do is show obedience. But if he's calling you to bad, then what do? Then you can respectfully speak to him and say, no dad, Allah said this. And then that would be courage. So courage is following the Sharia rules. So remember these three things. If you don't remember anything else, remember, how do you build courage? 1, question your relationship with Allah. Remember, Allah exists. He is the most definite thing. You are going to go to Him. Yeah? Secondly, what are you worried about? Are you worried about that someone's going to make you look like a fool? Don't worry, Allah is there. Allah is there. Are you worried about money? Why are you worried about money? Allah is your provider. Do you see? This is what strengthens you. And the third thing is, what has Allah obligated you to do? If Allah has obligated you to do something, do that. That will then make you courageous. So if Allah has obligated you to pray, and the prayer time is running out and you're outside, you might have to pray on the street. You weren't intending to be courageous, but you've just exhibited courage. Because you've prayed and it doesn't matter who was there. Because the obligation came. Do you see? Now, if we look at our situation today and we said, if we didn't have these things, remember what I said earlier, what would happen? We would be a community, we would be a people who don't speak, who don't stand up, who don't account, who don't try to do what's right based on Islam. We would lose our Islam effectively. Other people would talk about our Islam, we wouldn't be talking about it. People will be attacking Islam and there will be no one there to defend it. Yeah? Our practices, our Islamic practices wouldn't be the same. So we have to be a community and a youth that is courageous. Now, if you look at the story of Musa alayhi salam, and I'm going to give you maybe a couple of examples, depending on the brother kicks me, tells me to stop. A couple of examples from the story of Musa alayhi salam I'll give you, because Musa alayhi salam's life epitomizes everything that I've said. His example of him going to Fir'aun epitomizes everything that I've said and shows you the courage. And there's multiple examples in the story of Musa where people show courage. And I'm sure a lot of you know the story of Musa alayhi salam. So I'm probably not going to tell you anything you don't know. But this time, when I say these things, I want you to link it. Link it with your life today. Ask you, how does that affect you? How does that impact me? When we look at Musa alayhi salam's life, we see that Musa alayhi salam came at a time where Fir'aun was the leader, was the king of Egypt. So the Fir'aun was the king of Egypt. And this Fir'aun, today we say Assad is the modern day Fir'aun. Yeah? Or we say Sisi in Egypt is the modern day Fir'aun. This should give you an idea how much of a tyrant Fir'aun was. Because he is the forefather of these modern day tyrants. Yeah? So Assad, he gassed and killed people in Syria, right? Children. Well, it was Fir'aun that showed him the blueprint of killing children. Do you see? Yeah? This guy was terrible. This guy was so deluded. You know, like the tyrants today, they don't call themselves God. They pretend to believe in God. Do you know what Fir'aun would say? He would say, Ana Rabbukum al-A'la. I am your Lord most high. Fa'buduni, worship me. And if anybody took a Lord besides him, he'd be surprised, like, you taking a God besides me? And in another narration, it talks about how he tells one of his aides, build a tower that is really high up to the sky, so I can converse with this so-called God. And then the guy says, what do you mean? There's no one else there apart from you. You are the only God. This is how deluded Fir'aun was. Yeah? And the oppression that he meted out on Bani Israel is something that the Muslims can relate to, because we live in a climate of oppression. And he oppressed them, he killed them, he enslaved them, and he saw a vision, as we all famously know, that somebody is going to topple him. Yeah? Somebody is going to come from the tribe of Israel, and then they're going to remove him. So what does Fir'aun do? He thinks, okay, Bani Israel, yeah? I'll kill a lot of them. So he gets every male child and he starts killing them one by one. Doesn't even think anything of it. And do you know why he stops? The only reason he stops is because the children were dying one by one, the elderly were getting older. Where's his slave population? Yeah? Who's going to serve him? That's the only reason he stopped. He said, okay, I'll calm it down. 1 year I'll kill them, 1 year I'll let them live. This is Fir'aun. And in that climate, in that atmosphere, Allah delivers to us Musa. So it shows you that no matter what the situation is, Allah has our backs. Allah will always give a way for the believers. Musa ﷺ was able to come even though this was happening. And not only that, Allah delivered Musa ﷺ to where? He was raised in the house of Fir'aun. This is Allah's plan. Because Allah says in the Quran, وَيَمْكُرُوا وَيَمْكُرُ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. That they plan and Allah plans. But Allah is the best of planners. You see? So, I'm going to cut this short. Musa alayhi salam, he grows up to be a man. He tries to defend someone from the Bani Israel against an Egyptian, and he accidentally kills this Egyptian man. When he kills him, Musa alayhi salam is forced to run away because he fears that Fir'aun may do something to him. So he escapes because he fears of the punishment. When he escapes, he meets, some narrators, they say that it's the Prophet Shu'aib, he marries his daughter, he spends 10 years in service here, and then after 10 years, he has the desire to go back to Egypt. He misses his family, he misses his land, he wants to go back. And he makes the intention to go back. Remember, he's not a prophet yet, but he makes the intention to go back. On the journey to Egypt, he gets lost. And he has the famous encounter where he has the conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah directly speaks to Musa. When Allah speaks to Musa, what does he say to him? He says, you are a prophet. He tells him about Tawheed. He tells him about the last day. But what else do you think he says to him? He says to him, اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى. He said, Musa, go to Fir'aun. He has become a tyrant. So who did Musa escape from in the first place? He was running away from Fir'aun. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, no, go to Fir'aun, but not only that, tell him he's a tyrant, and he's transgressed, and he's oppressed, and tell him all the wrong things that he's done, and tell him to not enslave Bani Israel, and tell him to let them go. So Musa alayhi salam is now being commanded to do the thing that he was worried about doing. And he had fear, and he was worried. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He speaks to us in the Quran about this fear that Musa alayhi salam had. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, قَالَ رَبِّ إِنِّي أَخَافُ أَن يُكَذِّبُونَ. Musa alayhi salam speaks to Allah, I fear that they will call me a liar. In another verse, وَلَهُمْ عَلَيَّ ذَنْبٌ فَأَخَافُ أَن يَقْتُلُونَ. They have a charge against me. I killed somebody. They will kill me. This is his real fear. This is his worry. So Musa alayhi salam is now faced with a choice. Does he obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And does he go to Musa? Or does he cower away? Does he run away? Does he keep his head down? This is the choice that Musa alayhi salam is faced with. So he asks Allah, he says, Allah, aid me, help me. Give me my brother Harun. So Harun accompanies him. But ultimately, Musa is able to do this. Why? Because he has Iman. And he has all the things I spoke about. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, قَالَ لَا تَخَافَا. Do not fear. إِنَّنِي مَعَكُمَا أَسْمَعُ وَأَرَى. I am with you both, i.e. Musa and Harun, and I am all seeing and all hearing. I will support you. إِنَّا مَعَكُمْ. I am with you. Yeah? So what did Musa alayhi salam have? He had unshakable Iman in Allah. He had belief in Allah. 2, he was strengthened by the fact that Allah was with him. So he had tawakkul, he relied on Allah. And 3, he was commanded to do so. This is what gave Musa the courage. Now, all of you sitting here and the sisters in the back as well, don't let this example pass you by and think, oh, mashallah. Apply it. Because every single day of your life and in your time here, you will have these moments, these Musa alayhi salam moments, where you will be asked to be courageous, where you will need to be courageous, where you will need to stand up for something, where you will need to defend something, where you will need to do something. In all of these situations, you will need to do something. Yeah? It could be, for example, the thing that you're asked to do is maintain your Islamic practice, preserve your Islamic identity, preserve your Islamic values. That could be the thing that you're asked to do. So for some of us here, we go to schools, right? For some of the sisters, you know, in Nottingham, they don't allow sisters to wear jilbab in schools. This could be the challenge that you face. Hijab is alright, they don't say much. Jilbab, no, you can't have that. Short skirt, that's fine. Jilbab, no. This is the situation in Nottingham. I don't know in Leicester if it's the same. So the challenge that this sister might face is what? How do I maintain this Islamic practice? Allah has obligated me to wear the jilbab, but the school is saying no. What do I do? Should I say, oh, leave it, can't do it? What does the parent do here? Does the parent empower the child and say to the child, no, maintain your Islamic dress, stick to it. Let's find a way out of this. Same with salah. You may go to school. I'll give you an example. When I was younger, alhamdulillah, my sister used to go to her friends and she used to say, alhamdulillah, my brother's 14, he's practicing. And the sisters were like, wow, amazing, mashallah. How does he pray at school? She goes, I don't know, I've never asked. So she came home that day and she goes, yeah, I was speaking to my friends and I told them you're practicing, you're doing this and that. She's like, okay. So how do you pray at school? I go, what? Praying at school? What do you mean? I'm at school, I don't need to pray. She's like, no, you need to pray. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. So straight away now I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to do? Because if I pray at school, back then we didn't have any prayer rooms at school, etc. All of the doors had windows on them. Someone's going to see me. I'm going to have to ask somebody, oh, can I have a prayer room? I'm going to have to take time out of lesson. They're going to see me. Someone's going to say something. Someone's going to ridicule me. Someone's going to laugh at me. But I had to do it. And alhamdulillah, I managed to do it. And I had all those worries and all those fears. Do you see? And you might have to be faced with the same situation. You could be sitting together with your friends. The challenge that you might face could be your friends are sitting down. Someone offers you some weed. Oh, here, take it. Nowadays, it's like smoking. It's not even that big of a deal. Are you going to cower to the pressure and think, oh, well, all my friends are doing it? Because what's the easiest thing to do when everyone's doing bad things? It's to either follow them or just stay silent. That's the easiest thing to do. The hard thing to do is to tell them what's the right thing. Isn't it? So this could be the challenge that you're facing. So think about your moments where Musa alayhi salam had this moment. What's your moment? How are you going to stand up for what is right? To go to the account of Fir'aun and Musa. So Fir'aun, what did he do? He called himself Allah and he oppressed the people of Bani Israel. So Musa alayhi salam goes to him and he speaks to Musa and he says, وَقَالَ مُوسَى يَا فِرْعَوْنُ إِنِّي رَسُولٌ مِّن رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. The brother recited that earlier. He said, he went to Fir'aun and he said to Fir'aun, I'm a messenger from Allah. And then he started giving him da'wah. And he called him to what is true. And he spoke to him about Allah, the Lord of the worlds. قَالَ رَبُّ الْمَشْرِكِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. In another verse, قَالَ رَبُّنَا الَّذِي أَعْطَى كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلْقَهُ ثُمَّ هَدَى. He basically said, Allah is the Lord of the world. Allah is the one that formed you. Allah is the one that gave you guidance. Then he told him, you go back to him. مِنْهَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ وَفِيهَا نُعِيدُكُمْ وَمِنْهَا تُخْرِجُكُمْ تَارَةً أُخْرَى. You are going to go back to Allah. So change your ways. Free Bani Israel. فَأَرْسِلْ مَعِي Bani Israel. Let them come with me. So imagine he's going to Fir'aun, this tyrant. No one's dared to speak to him in any other way other than in a soft tone. And Musa is accounting him. And not only that, he's telling him, you're wrong. You're not God. You're going to be accounted by God. Fix your ways. Stop enslaving Bani Israel. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? But he had to do this. So what did Fir'aun say? Inshallah, I'll wrap up in the night. What did Fir'aun do? Fir'aun was very quick. Fir'aun turned around and he reminded Musa, I'll leave the ayahs out, I'll just narrate them. He reminded Musa straight away of the favors that he did to Musa. He said, you were brought up in my house. I fed you. I clothed you. How dare you speak to me like this? And does it sound very familiar? Do you know if you ever say anything bad about the British government, the society, we're always told, why are you being ungrateful? You've got jobs here, you've got houses here, you get benefits here. Just be quiet. They're feeding you. Well, Fir'aun did the exact same thing. He said to Musa, you were in my palace. I looked after you. Don't be ungrateful. And Musa a.s. response was so beautiful. It shows you the intellect and the fact that he realized that he was on the right path. He said to him, what ni'mah are you talking about? What favor are you talking about? Are you talking about the fact that you enslaved my whole nation? The fact that you tried to kill me and that's why I ended up in your house? Is that the favor you're talking about? So sometimes you have to remind people of the reality when the reality is clouded. And this is what he said to Fir'aun. To cut a long story short, a duel happens between the magicians of Fir'aun and Musa. Musa alayhi salam is given signs from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His stick changes to a snake, and Fir'aun's magicians are called from all the different cities, and then they come with illusion and these trickery. It wasn't real magic, it was just the height of illusions. Yeah? And all of them came and there was a big duel. The sorcerers and the magicians, they threw their sticks and ropes, they turned to snakes, and everyone was like, whoa. And then what did Musa a.s. do? He threw his stick, and his stick devoured everything. And the moment the magicians saw that, wait a minute, we know illusion, we know trickery, this isn't magic, this is real. What did the magicians do? What did they do? They said, آمنا برب هارون وموسى. We believe in the Lord of Harun and Musa. Can you imagine this? These magicians were the top of society. They were the scholars, they were the top men. And they came because they loved Fir'aun and they wanted money from Fir'aun and they wanted closeness from Fir'aun. But the moment they saw the truth, what did they do? They prostrated. They became Muslim. And then Fir'aun was looking at them, shocked. This man is deluded. He said, how dare you believe in his God? I didn't give you permission. How dare you believe in them? And then the magician said, what? We don't care. We have seen truth. We know this is the truth. Do whatever you like. And Fir'aun threatened them to chop their limbs, and they didn't. They didn't break. This is the second example of courage, and there's many more. If I had time, I would go through them. But you see here that in the example of the magicians, all they had was Iman, and that was enough. Can you see this Iman is a comprehensive basis for courage? So if any of you ever sit here and you feel worried, just ask yourself, why am I worried? Why do I lack this? And look to the story of Musa and the things that I've discussed today, and inshallah take strength and courage from that. If I have made any mistake, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
Jazakallah khairan, Brother ZACKARIYA. Inshallah, sit and invite you. So we have a few minutes. If there are any questions, if you have any questions, please let me know. You can write them down as well. I don't know if the sisters have any paper to write on.
Allah. Sure.
You know, this point on courage, do you think when the sorcerers changed their opinion, that was also courage?
Sorry, just to repeat the question, the brother's asking, when the sorcerers changed their opinion, was that also courage?
Jazakallah khair for the question. Yes, exactly, it was. And the point that I'm making, and the reason I included the sorcerer's example is that fundamentally and ultimately, even if a man was ignorant of anything and all he knew was Allah, all he knew, this person would be dynamic, he'd be amazing, he'd be fearless. His iman would act as a barrier and a shield against anything. And what the magicians had at that moment was, they had the sweetness of iman. And that's what gave them the courage to be able to deal with the threats of Fir'aun. Because that's the only thing that would help you in that situation. Because if you are somebody who believes this life is the only life, imagine you believe this life is your only life. The pleasures that you get in this life are the only pleasures that you're going to receive. And that there's no accounting, and that there's no punishment, and there's nothing afterwards. Why would you do anything different than what everyone else is doing? Why do we behave in a certain way? We behave in the way we behave because we believe in Allah. We believe in the last day. We're going to go back to Allah. We're going to be accounted for every atom's weight of good and every atom's weight of bad. If you now remove that, then we would act completely different. So these magicians, they knew that they would be resurrected and that they would go to Allah. And that was sufficient for them to realize that Fir'aun was false and what Musa came with is truth. Yeah? And this courage is what we need to emulate. Now there's another point as well, on a slight separate topic. It's about change. Sometimes we think change takes a long time. Sometimes we think, a year, 2 years, 10 years, it can take a lot of time. But actually, your habits might take time to change. But change can happen instantly, and there's numerous examples of that. And the magician's example is one of those, where change can happen instantly. All it takes is this to change, and you to be convinced of something new. You see, the magicians were convinced that Fir'aun was God, then they came to new information, and they were convinced. And that's all it took for them to change from the first situation to the second. So to any of you sitting here, any of the sisters, or anyone that you know, think about it. It's not a long process, it's a question of your relationship with Allah and the belief of Allah and the belief of Islam. You see, if you address that and you get that right, then everything comes into place.
Suggestion for the sisters in Nottingham that they can wear the jilbab, the burqa.
So the brother's asking, what would be the suggestion for the sisters in Nottingham where they cannot wear the jilbab?
Firstly, I'm not sure the situation in every school, and I'm not sure how bad the situation is. I know some schools are very dead against it, and some schools are not. The situation here now is for you to assess this problem now, yeah? And there's many layers to it. First and foremost, before you even look at this issue itself, you need to look at the whole topic of Islam, Islamic practices, and parenting and raising children. Because this is what it raises. It raises that question. So for our mothers, for our fathers here, is how am I giving my Islam to my child? Whether the child is able to do the end bit at the end is the last part of it. But actually, he needs to be concerned with that. Because a lot of the time, the parents might be concerned, but the child might not be. You see? So there's a real problem here of parenting and asking yourself, how am I giving my Islam to my child, and how do I make my child concerned about this practice? How do I make them worry about this? How do I make them want to do this? How do I empower them and make them confident about this? That's the first stage. The second stage of this is you need to tackle every problem, yeah, as it comes. So here the situation might be engagement with schools. You could be looking at alternatives, yeah, homeschooling, Islamic schooling, yeah. All of those options are open for you. Yeah. So engagement with the school, it could be an option if you've got no other option to go to. Yeah. So I know many parents who've gone to schools and have come to an agreement, yeah, and made it possible. I know some parents who've chosen to homeschool their children because they knew that it would not be possible. And for them, the value of the jilbab outweighed anything in terms of the education that they have. And that takes courage to say that, because you're living in a society where you're judged by the educational achievements that your kid has. So if that's jeopardized in any way, other people would look at you and think, that's a bit strange. So you're sacrificing your child's education so that they can wear a long dress. People look at that in a strange way. But you need to have the conviction in, wait a minute, why am I protecting this? Why am I trying to preserve this? Because it's a command from Allah. So the answer to the question is that no, it's not as simple as, I take my child out, or I have to homeschool them, or I have to send them to an Islamic school. It's about a wider question about engagement and asking yourself, well, actually, do I have any engagement with the schools that I send them to? What's available in the community? Has anybody else raised this? Yeah? Why am I now only concerned about it? This has actually been an issue for a lot of us. Well, can we collectively gather to address this? Can you see? There's many facets to addressing this, other than simply saying, I can't send them to the school. You see? But yeah.
Can I just also add to that? I think brothers and sisters often, especially parents, underestimate what they can do by just engaging with the schools. They automatically assume that they can't do anything about it. And often that's what everyone assumes. So I think all it needs is, again, to be courageous and actually raise the issue with the governors, with the teachers, and see what can be done, inshallah. Yeah, inshallah, a lot can be done.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that's such a beautiful point, which is often we feel defeated before we've done anything. And that's also a symptom of not having the courage. Yeah? And it's actually also a symptom of being pushed down all the time. Yeah? So if you look at Bani Israel, one of the characteristics that they had was that they were, because of the oppression that they faced, they were a certain way. Yeah? It's like they were accustomed to this low situation, this low level, and they never hoped for anything better. So the brother's given a beautiful piece of advice there, is that do not think that there's a way out of the situation. There is a way out of the situation, and you can achieve a lot, but you have to have the ability to engage and not think, well, actually, I'm not going to be successful anyway, so let me just keep my head down. Because remember, in any situation, the easiest thing to do, easiest immediate thing to do is not do anything. Or enjoying the bad thing. That's the easiest thing to do. So there's a famous narration about the Sabbath, right? So the children of Israel, the Bani Israel were told, do not fish on a Saturday. Yeah, famous story. And then what happened? These, and to be careful with my words, but what they did was they were told not to fish on Saturdays. And they came up with an idea. What did they do? They said, okay, what we'll do is we'll cast our nets out, so we'll catch the fish anyway. And what we'll do is we'll pull them out on Sunday. Yeah? So they were commanded, don't do this thing. They tried to find a way around it. Now, in that situation, there were three groupings of people. There were the people who committed the act. There were the people who watched but didn't say anything. And then there were the people that accounted. And the only ones that were rewarded were who? The ones who actually did something and accounted. So silently watching tyranny, oppression, haram, these type of things, munkar, is not an acceptable situation. It should worry us and we should want to do something about it. You see? So remember this point. The easiest thing to do, yes, is to be silent and enjoying bad. The hard thing to do is to take action. But that's the thing that's obligated.
It's a small question. Do you think after 9/11, the courage in the Western world from the Muslim community is getting lower and lower, disappear?
So the Sheikh's asking, do you think that after 9/11, the courage in the Muslim community is getting less and less?
Again, this is an interesting question because, again, take an example, because we're discussing Musa, from the point that I mentioned earlier, is when a particular nation, particular people are constantly oppressed and put down, the net effect of that is not normally positive because they develop very negative traits and characteristics, which is why Allah tells us to look at them. And in Islam, we have this concept of Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, enjoining good and forbidding it for a reason. It's so that we don't fall into the depths of what Bani Israel fell into. Now, going to the question in terms of confidence, I would say, although the situation looks tough and we've been attacked more than ever before, in an interesting way, interestingly, I would say the Muslims are coming closer to Islam. And that is an interesting observation, that even if we were to look at this question superficially, you take a snapshot, I don't know, of Egypt in the 70s or something, or Turkey, wherever it is, you see a picture of loads of women, no hijab, nothing. I know it's a very superficial example, but then you take a snapshot now, everyone's in hijab and jilbab. But Islam is under attack now more than ever before. But all of a sudden people are putting on the Islamic dress, they're more interested in Islam, they're more interested in knowing about Islam. Since 2001, they said that there's been more converts to Islam than ever before, because it shone light onto Islam, so people were interested in Islam. So I would say, although the challenges have increased, I wouldn't necessarily say that the Ummah of Muhammad lacks courage or confidence. It's just we need to develop it more and more. And we see enough examples where actually we're returning back to Allah, we're returning back to the Deen. Look in the UK, there's more interest in Arabic than there's ever before. There's more interest in fiqh courses than ever before. So these are positive signs. So we need to nurture these positive aspects, and we need to not bury our head under the sand and acknowledge the challenges of the pressure of conforming to the current ideas. So recently the transgender issue has come, where Muslims, they must accept gender choices, and previously homosexuality, and this being taught in schools. That's a challenge, right?
but we have to rise to that. You know? So I would say yes, the challenges have increased, but I would say that there's enough positive signs that the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is gaining in confidence and looking to Islam more than ever before.
I think inshallah we'll end there. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us that when our Musa alayhi salam moments come, that we actually have the courage to preserve our identity, inshallah. Can I say Jazakallah khair to Brother Zakaria for the enlightening talk? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you a tremendous reward. And can I say Jazakallah khair to all of you for making the time to come and listen attentively, Sheikh Ismail for allowing the Al-Bayan to be used, inshallah. Just a reminder again, our next talk will be on the 17th of February, inshallah, so please put that date in your diary. And can I just say, ask Brother Zakaria to end with a dua, please.
اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام وإليك يرجع السلام. حينا ربنا بالسلام وأدخلنا دار السلام. تبارك ربنا وتعاليت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. وصلى الله خير خلق محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.